Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. Before we unpack today's topic, make sure to subscribe to the Rugby Obsession YouTube channel and newsletter from the link in the description. So if you want to survive an 80-minute collision with, a 250-pound Springbok, a green smoothie, and a good night's sleep, just won't cut it.
No, definitely not.
Right. Usually when we talk about what fuels elite athletes, we picture this, like clinical precision. We imagine these highly optimized humans relying on tailored diets, sports psychologists, and this really pristine, stoic pursuit of excellence.
Yeah, the classic PR image.
Exactly. But today, we're looking at an incredibly candid piece from Rugby Pass that kind of shatters that image. It centers around recent comments from Mack Hansen, the 28-year-old Connacht and Ireland wing.
Yeah, he was speaking on the For the Love of Rugby show recently.
He was. And what he revealed is just fascinating. Our mission today is to explore the psychology behind international rugby rivalries. Like, how do elite athletes use this, manufactured hate to fuel peak performance? And how does it just instantly evaporate when the final whistle blows?
It is such an interesting look into the cognitive demands of extreme physical pressure, because what Hansen is describing, it isn't just about sports. It's really a high-stakes application of a psychological survival tool.
Wow. A survival tool. I like that phrasing.
Yeah, because anyone who has ever had to psych themselves up for a massive challenge will relate to the mental gymnastics required here. But to really understand why he relies on this, we kind of have to understand the immense weight of the current landscape in world rugby right now.
Right. The historical context is huge here.
Exactly. Over the past decade, this fierce, defining feud has developed between Ireland and the world's two traditional leading sides, the All Blacks and the Springboks.
Which, for generations, those Southern Hemisphere giants held undisputed dominance over the sport. Like, they were the mythical titans you measured yourself against and, usually lost to.
Right, but Ireland's trajectory over the last few years has completely disrupted that hierarchy. They surged to the absolute summit of the global game, holding that #1 ranking.
Yeah, and playing a brand of rugby that just forced the entire world to take notice, which inevitably put them on a direct collision course with New Zealand and South Africa. And that tension, it really reached a boiling point during the 2023 World Cup in France.
It really did. And that tournament is vital for understanding Hansen's current mindset. Because Andy Farrell's Irish side achieved this monumental victory by beating the Springboks in the pool stages.
Oh, that match was brutally physical.
It's punishing, but it proved Ireland could match that legendary bone-crunching power of South Africa. But then, of course, that triumph was immediately followed by heartbreak.
Yeah, crashing out against the All Blacks in the quarterfinals.
Right. A match decided by the narrowest of margins. So the history here is incredibly recent, deeply painful, and, highly emotional.
Which perfectly explains why Hansen completely bypasses the PR script when discussing this. Because a week prior to Hansen's interview, his teammate Stuart McCloskey actually downplayed the tension.
Yeah, he gave a very measured answer.
Exactly. He suggested the South Africans probably dislike the Irish more than the other way around. Very diplomatic. But Hansen takes that diplomatic playbook and just throws it out the window.
He really does. He champions the passion and the intensity.
He does. He says that leading up to a test week against South Africa or New Zealand, the mindset completely shifts. It becomes incredibly personal. He actually says, quote, "You're like, these are some of the worst people in the world at this moment. I honestly hate their guts."
Wow. To hear an active international athlete admit to genuinely despising the opposition like that, it's rare. Usually we just get the standard platitudes about respecting the opposition, focusing on internal processes, that sort of thing.
Right, taking it one game at a time.
Exactly. But Hansen's honesty reveals the hidden cognitive load of the sport, because rugby is a sport of high-speed, unprotected physical collisions.
Yeah, brutal.
And human beings are fundamentally wired with a self-preservation instinct. Your brain is evolutionarily designed to scream at you, demanding that you do not sprint full speed into a wall of muscle.
I was actually thinking about the mental gymnastics required to override that instinct. And to me, it feels a lot like method acting.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, you watch an actor like Daniel Day-Lewis take on a role, right? And they completely submerge their own personality. They adopt this temporary, incredibly dark headspace just to deliver a killer performance. They convince their own nervous system that the artificial reality of the movie set is the actual truth.
Right. They get completely lost in it.
Yeah. And it seems like Hansen is doing the exact same thing, putting on this psychological costume of pure hatred because that's the character he needs to inhabit to perform at the absolute limit of human capability. But, I mean, is it actually healthy to invent this level of personal animosity, or is it just the required cost of entry for this specific sport?
I see where you're going with the method acting analogy, but it actually falls a bit short here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because when an actor like Daniel Day-Lewis takes on a role, he often stays in character for months. He lives in that dark headspace off camera, and he struggles to drop it. What Hansen is doing is, well, it's something entirely different.
Because he drops it after the game.
Exactly. He drops this intense hatred the literal second the final whistle blows. That isn't method acting. That is state-dependent compartmentalization. It is a highly specific psychological bypass to override that evolutionary fear of physical pain we talked about.
So you need an emotion powerful enough to drown out the fear.
Precisely. And in the human emotional spectrum, perceived threat, which manifests as anger or manufactured hatred, is the most effective override we have. It floods the body with adrenaline and cortisol, priming the muscles and dulling pain receptors.
So the animosity has nothing to do with the Springboks or the All Blacks as individual human beings. It's entirely about hacking his own nervous system to survive the physical demands of the next 80 minutes.
That is the core mechanism, yeah. And what keeps this functional rather than destructive is that sportsmanship at its core. Hansen clarifies that off the field, you talk to these opponents and they are great blokes.
Right. He says once it's finished, it's done.
Okay.
And there's actually a comment from a fan named Quasi that perfectly embraces this. They wrote, "This is rugby at its best. Great to see it's only for the game, and afterwards they get on with each other."
It really is the ideal perspective. True sportsmanship isn't the absence of aggression, it's the ability to contain intense, primal aggression entirely within the agreed-upon boundaries of the game.
I love that. Hey, really quick, if you are enjoying this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe to the Rugby Obsession YouTube channel and newsletter from the link in the description. So if players have to manufacture this intense hatred for teams located thousands of miles away, what happens when the opponent is right next door?
Right, transitioning to those homegrown grudges, it changes the entire psychological texture.
It really does. The article touches on the Six Nations and the Scotland factor, and Hansen admitted there's, quote, a bit of a thing going on there, which is a beautifully understated way to describe a centuries-old Celtic rivalry.
A bit of a thing. That's great.
Yeah, and he points out that even though Ireland has had the better of Scotland recently, Scotland is normally on a roll when they meet. And Ireland desperately wants to stop them from getting one over on them.
Because the animosity with South Africa or New Zealand, that's born out of a quest for global supremacy. It is about taking the crown. The rivalry with Scotland operates on the psychology of sibling rivalry.
Though that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's deeply familiar. These players know each other intimately from club competitions like the URC. They share a similar cultural context, and the long history of the fixture just weighs heavily on the present.
It's the friction of proximity. Like, overthrowing New Zealand is a mythical quest, but playing Scotland is like dealing with a neighbor who knows all your bad habits and wants to embarrass you in your own backyard.
Exactly. Losing to the All Blacks is a sporting tragedy, but losing to Scotland, when you're expected to win, is just a personal annoyance.
You can hear it in his phrasing, too. We don't want them to get one over on us. And I love bringing in the fan perspectives here because the comment section is just a fascinating debate.
The fans are so dialed into these narratives, they aren't just observing, they're actively participating.
Yeah, like there's a user named John T. McGrath who argues that New Zealand and South Africa fear Ireland because Ireland upset the cozy traditional apple cart.
That is a very astute observation, because for decades, the accepted narrative was that Northern Hemisphere teams were gritty and tactical, while Southern Hemisphere teams possessed this natural superiority in skill and flair.
And Ireland just systematically dismantled that narrative.
They did. Under Joe Schmidt and then Andy Farrell, they beat them by playing an incredibly sophisticated, high-tempo brand of rugby. They challenged the fundamental identity of the traditional powers, which breeds a very specific kind of resentment.
It's classic disruptor energy.
Yeah.
But then, to show how two-sided this ecosystem is, you have Southern Hemisphere fans completely dismissing the idea that a rivalry even exists.
This is a classic defense mechanism.
Right. User Southern Rugby chimed in saying, "It's always funny seeing Irish players talk up this non-existent rivalry with NZ. I know one here thinking about you."
Feigning indifference is one of the oldest tactics in the book. If New Zealand fans acknowledge the rivalry, they acknowledge Ireland as an equal threat. The denial is absolute proof that the rivalry is deeply felt.
I find it hilarious. The logic is basically, we don't care about you at all, and I'm going to take time out of my day to go into the comments specifically about you just to tell you how much we don't care.
It is perfect sports banter.
It really is. And then Ed the Duck jokingly points out a brilliant logical flaw. He writes, so Mack hates the Boks, the Kiwis, and the Scots. There comes a point when it's not them, it's you.
It completely punctures the tension of the whole psychological discussion.
It does. Like, maybe Mack just needs a long vacation. But jokes aside, we want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment and tell us, do you think players need this intense personal beef to perform at their best? Let us know your opinions.
Because Hansen makes a great ultimate point. He says having these rivalries going into a game actually adds a lot to you as a person.
Which feels a bit counterintuitive. How does temporarily hating someone make you a better person?
Because it demands total, uncompromising emotional and physical investment. When the stakes feel that deeply personal, you are forced to dig into reserves of resilience and focus that you simply cannot access in a state of comfort.
So the hate is just the crude ignition switch.
Exactly. The engine it starts is one of profound personal growth. You learn about your own limits.
Which brings us to the ultimate question for you listening. Most of us aren't lacing up our boots to run into a South African forward. But we all face daunting hurdles, right? Like a massive project, a difficult negotiation. It makes you wonder if channeling intense passion or even a manufactured sense of friction into a specific time-boxed moment can be a superpower for the rest of us.
The idea of adapting a manufactured rivalry to everyday obstacles is definitely tempting, like inventing a rival at work to motivate you to finish a grueling report. But we have to look very carefully at the psychological safety of doing that outside of sports.
Because we don't have a referee to blow a whistle and tell us the game is over.
Precisely. That is the danger of everyday hate. The elite athlete relies on the ritualized combat framework. The 80-minute timer naturally clears the cortisol from their system. If you apply sports hate to your corporate job, you don't get that physical release.
Yeah, you can't exactly tackle your boss.
No, you cannot. There is no final whistle telling your brain it is safe to power down the fight or flight response.
So you just end up marinating in your own stress hormones, leading to burnout and actual resentment.
Exactly. It's a highly volatile substance. If you cannot guarantee that you can instantly drop the animosity the moment the task is complete, then it is too dangerous of an emotion to play with.
That is a crucial warning. Channeling the dark stuff can get you over a wall, but if you don't know how to take the method acting costume off, you just become the monster you invented. Well, one last time, make sure you subscribe to the Rugby Obsession YouTube channel and newsletter from the link in the description. Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.